So welcome to this webinar on Elements.cloud. This webinar is aimed at consultants, so thank you for joining me. As with all webinars, it will be recorded and both the deck and the recording will be sent to all of you. So as I said, this session is about Elements and it's really aimed at awareness for consultants. So maybe you've heard about Elements, you're consultants and are just interested in the overall capabilities. Maybe you've got a client who said that they already use Elements and therefore you need to get up to speed. Or the final situation is you may well have your firm has adopted Elements and you're new to it and you want to get up to speed. So if you're in any of those situations, this is the webinar for you. It's not going to get into detailed training, but there will be links that I'll be referencing all the way through, which will point you at the more detailed training content if you want to get up to speed on any particular aspect. So there are three aspects that I want to go through. The first is, how do you reduce the project risk by using a principle we call about org discovery? You're new to the client, you just walked into a new client, you have no idea how much they have customized their org, you've no idea where the bodies are buried. And that increases the risk massively for any project if you don't understand what they've customized or what they think they may have customized, and then you dig into it in day 3 or day 5 of the project and realize that it's way more complicated than you first thought. So I want to show you how you can use an org discovery process we've developed. We've discovered that has halved the time it takes for consultants to understand what the complexity of the org that they've walked into. The second area I'm going to pick up is then how do you deliver better engagements, whether that is a one-off project or whether you've got a continuous engagement with a customer where you have a managed service. And I want to talk about how business and org analysis will help you deliver better results for the customer, reducing the amount of rework by up to 80%, and reducing any work on applications that they never want built by 100%. But also leaving the customer in a better state than you first arrived, making sure that they are in a position where they can continually innovate, or if you're running a managed service, you can run that innovation for them more effectively. And then the third area I want to look at is how you package up the innovation, the knowledge you have about maybe a particular industry, a cloud, or an aspect of how a cloud gets implemented, how you can package up that innovation, which will help you increase your win rate. So you can arrive and hit the ground running when you're at the client. The client will recognize that's an important aspect of why they chose you. And how you also increase profitability of your project or your programs, because you get better consistency, you can deliver results for clients more quickly. So just a couple of minutes on Elements and the overall platform. We think about it as a way of tracking both the business and impact analysis documentation around the life cycle. So we really focus on the analyze phase, capturing requirements, mapping processes, doing the org analysis, but developing user stories so that we can then feed that into build. So we have some concepts about building the right app first time, the concept of shift left, giving you better visibility of the changes inside Salesforce, and then finally future-proofing the org by better documentation. And you'll see aspects of that as I go through this webinar. So let's start with org discovery. As I said, clients have use it to understand what's in their org, but then consultants walking into a new org, obviously the first phase is understanding what's in the org, and you can reduce the time it takes by over 50%. We've documented there an org discovery process. Again, there's a link there to both an article, the process, and a longer webinar going into it in more detail. But you can see it has 2 phases. The first phase is not technical, but it's about what are they trying to do with the org. So we have something called the org assessment, 70 questions, which start to dig into how do they want to focus? What are the priorities? What's the governance framework? So some questions that talk about how well the org is run. And then the second phase, which is the pale blue, which is then digging into the org. And it's not just using elements, it's using other tools like Salesforce Optimizer to understand what's been configured, where the hot areas are. Now, clearly, you'll be engaged by the customer to look at a particular area. It might be an improving case, it might be a digital transformation, it might be increasing the effectiveness of the sales teams, it might be service related. Those will focus you on particular areas of the Salesforce implementation. And again, using this org discovery process, you can dig into a lot more detail and understand exactly what the configuration is, where the technical debt is, where the risks lie in terms of configuration. You may be asked to, all we need to do is just go and improve the way opportunity works. But then you discover that there are 27 different record types and 150 validation rules, which suddenly makes life more complicated. So let me show you how that works in practice. So there is the process map that I said the link in bit.ly/org discovery will take you to the article and a link to this process map, which obviously is available inside Elements. Every step has links to supporting information, why start with the assessment, how to run it, click here, the help on how you would sync your org, so we can start to do the analysis for you. That box there has a drill down, which means we can get into more detail around how we discover the end user adoption of the org. So again, a really valuable resource that helps you understand how to do that org discovery. As I said, it starts with this org maturity assessment. You can take the assessment, either you take it with thinking about your customer or sit down with your customer. It's about 70 questions, or say 64 questions. You rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, and at the end of it, it gives you this spider chart. The spider chart's really valuable, but what's more interesting is the conversation you're having with the customer to help them think about their org maturity. And this is about their implementation maturity, not necessarily the detail of their org. The detail of their org is driven out of what we call our org model. So 2 minutes to set up the sync to their org, between 10 minutes and 2 hours to run that sync. But it then pulls out all the metadata. And you can see here on the right-hand side, all the metadata we've pulled out in this demo org. It's a number of custom objects, number of managed packages, and everything on the left-hand side, you click into it, and then it will tell you more information about it. So a couple of things. The structure of this org model. Left-hand side has this tree structure. You can open it up. The right-hand side is context sensitive. We'll tell you, the dependencies, where it's used. But the other thing you can do is, as you work your way through, you can start to track items that you've spotted. So the act of discovery means that you're uncovering clues about things that might be changed. Rather than sticking them in a spreadsheet, pop them in here, which says there's optimization potential. You can start to make some comments. At the end of the discovery process, you can run a report which will pull all of these notes that you've added and essentially create the spreadsheet that you were going to build anyway. But you can do this as you start working your way through any of the areas. And if I go down to an object level, if we start getting into an object level, we've done a lot of the heavy lifting for you. We've done a lot of that analysis. We'll tell you everything about a particular object, and how many records by record type, how important are the fields. So those fields that are low have no data whatsoever. Those that are high are well used. They have data. They are used in workflow, validation, and so on. You can see how well populated fields are. So, and again, I'm not going to spend an enormous amount of time going through every single aspect, but you can start to see the work that we've done for you behind the scenes. So whether it's down at a field level, starting to tell you everywhere a field is used, how well populated by record type. So where this is used in terms of formula fields. And if I ran the dependency analysis, and we'll see this again a bit later, but I can start to see the complication and the related items associated, in this case, with a field. So I can now see this field draws on that custom field, which is on that custom field. It's used in that report, which is used in those dashboards. So we're instantly giving you a feel for the complexity of the org. That's at a detailed level. At the highest level, we have something called the Org Analytics Report, which gives you the high-level view. So think of this as a parallel with, say, the Org Optimizer Report. The Org Optimizer Report goes into levels of how much data you've got, how far you're hitting particular limits. This is giving you an understanding about the complexity of the org, how well documented it is. I mean, how well, this is the Salesforce description fields. Are they filled out or not filled out? How many records per object? The impact analysis of every single object. So we're starting to give you high-level information which you can then drill into and focus your discovery efforts based on the scope of your engagement with a customer. The important message to take away from this is that org discovery process can massively reduce the risk of you when you walk into a project. It will halve the time that it takes to do discovery. The old way of opening up setup, asking questions, digging in, you end up with a far better picture, and it means that you can have a better conversation with every customer. So the next area I want to talk about is how you deliver better engagements. Now, this is sort of the delivery cycle, if you will. Step one is about capturing ideas. Step two is taking those ideas and turning them into business outcomes, into requirements. 3 is defining the fit gap, so breaking down those requirements into user stories. Understanding the risk of those user stories is box 4. Implementing those stories, I build, whether it's configure or code, and then releasing them into the production, box 6. If I go down back to the beginning, box 7, using that system in production, and you go around the loop again. Now, I'm not suggesting you have to do all of this in elements, but these activities you will be doing for your client on an engagement. And at a minimum, you want to focus on these 3 boxes, box 2, 3, and 4 inside elements. That will give you the biggest bang for the buck, the biggest results most quickly. If you want to use elements to support the whole implementation cycle, we can absolutely do that. But again, I'm trying to focus you on okay, you're at your client, your time is tight, you want to get going, how can you get the biggest result? So elements will actually manage all of these different sets of information, which you probably already have in spreadsheets, Word documents, Visio, Lucid charts, and we're really building, the application is, Elements is putting this all into a set of managed documentation, number 1. But most importantly, it's the linkages between them, and that's where the real value comes from. That's where the insights come from. You've got feedback, you've got requirements, you've got user stories, you've got your process maps, you've got entity relationship diagrams, you've got third-party documentation, and then you've got that data dictionary that we've already looked at, the metadata dictionary. And it's the interrelationships between those is where the power comes out, knowing that this particular Apex class is used in this business process, but it actually uses these fields which have been changed 5 times because of those user stories. That gives you an understanding about the risk of making changes. It enables you to do the conflict management early. Let's discover those problems in analysis rather than in production. Hundreds or thousands of times quicker and cheaper to discover those problems when you're doing the design work than when you're actually in production. You've broken something, everyone's running around with their hair on fire, and you've got to try and fix it. So there's a concept called shift left. Let's move the discussions, let's move all those decisions further left, earlier in the life cycle, which is cheaper, reduces risk, and is actually less stressful. Now, this is a lot of information, lots of spreadsheets. What do you need to do as a minimum? As a minimum, let's just capture user stories and link them to the Salesforce metadata. That will give you the biggest result, and I'll show you how that works in a moment. The next phase, fine, okay, you start documenting a few business processes. Let's link those. You probably have supporting documentation, specifications, links, screenshots, photographs. Link those as well. So the first view was, I'd say, maximum impact, minimum effort. This is some incremental effort, but you're doing the work anyway. The extra effort to create those links is very little compared with the act of creating that specification, the act of that workshop with the customer where you have a whiteboard. Take a photograph of it and link it. So we're all about collecting that information, holding it in one place, so you then get the power of it. And the benefit is not just on this project, but subsequent projects, because you're now building up the institutional knowledge of why we made changes to Salesforce. I can go into your org and probably work out how you did something or what you did, but what's important is why you did it. What was the thinking behind it when you designed something in a particular way? That's the gold dust. So let me show you how this works in practice. There we go. So you can create user stories inside elements. You can add new, excuse me, you can add a new user story, type it in, what's the summary, description, risk assessment, link it to, assign it to someone. But you probably already have user stories. So you can import them. If your customer is using Jira, you can do the synchronization, do the connection. Suddenly all the Jira user stories are now available inside Elements. Maybe you have those user stories sitting in spreadsheets, in a Trello board, in a custom object. It doesn't really matter where they are. If you can spit them out and get them into a CSV file, you can then import them into Elements. And now you have one central place for managing all those user stories. Now, is this better than a spreadsheet? Well, yes, it is, because first of all, we end up with a status. So you have a managed workflow, and then you have this right-hand panel. You can start to give it a risk assessment. You can start to link to the metadata that's associated with it. You can add documentation. You can have discussions. Think of this as a chatter stream associated with every single user story. So let's look at, these are the ones that have just been raised. They're in the being considered phase. We have some here that are already in different phases, ready for release, ready for implementation. So you have one central location that multiple people can access, but you can see that some of these have been associated with a release. So we have the concept of releases. There are 3 releases, and a release is a collection of user stories. So the minimum that we're talking about is, number 1, get your user stories in one place in Elements. Number 2, group them by release. So if I look at this release number 1, these are the 4 user stories associated with this release. I can see their status, I can see their risk level. But more importantly, if I pick this one here, I can see which metadata items are going to be changed by this particular release. So by this particular release based on this user story. I could also look at, say, if we had process diagrams and requirements linked, I could look at the process diagrams that are going to get changed by this release. But for the moment, let's just focus on user stories. So this user story, number 36, project team resources based on vaccination status. I can see more information. I can see it's linked to Jira. I'll come back to that in a moment. But the first and most important thing is I want to link this to metadata items. So we saw it's already linked to some, but let me just copy the story link and let's go into our Salesforce org and let's start looking at some of the other metadata items that may be touched. So I go back here, I notice here the project system objects and a layout is going to be deleted. So I also think that we need to link this particular, the budget field. And I could link it purely from here. I can see that we already have some different user stories that are touching it. I could paste the link in, and now I've added the user story. I simply say update, vaccination tracking. and click Attach. And now I've added that metadata item to this user story number 36. And now I can see that here I've got a history of the changes that are being made to this one metadata item. Just that is powerful. I can see there that I've got four different user stories that are changing this one field. It may be different project teams. It may be that one team's changing it to A, and another turning it back to B. So we're immediately spotting the conflicts here. But the other thing is this budget field, I wonder where else it's used. I wonder if I have to change this budget field, are there other areas inside the Salesforce org I may need to consider? So the impact assessment tab shows me, oh, it's used in two record types. This is the field population, but it's used in one formula field. I can roll over and take a look at that. It's used in 4 page layouts. It's used in 4 reports. It's used in a couple of validation rules. And we didn't discover it in Apex classes, those 11 things. But even more powerful, that was a single level. I can look down multiple levels. So I can look at the dependency tree of this particular field, and I can look at that dependency tree and think about what else I might need to add to that user story, which is impacted. Wow, okay, I can see the field here is now used, well, there's a custom field there, but that custom field, okay, is also used by that custom field, which is used in those layouts. There's a report there, which is used in a couple of dashboards. So if I'm changing this field in this user story, maybe I also ought to consider changing this report. And I can see that it's already linked to that. That's fantastic. But this dashboard, oh no, okay, paste story link. I can now go and add this metadata, that dashboard, and that dashboard there. I can now go and add to the user story. So you can see how now I'm adding more changes, suggested changes to that user story based on an understanding about what's in the org. I might have changed that budget field and hadn't realized that that dashboard's being fed off it, and again, executive team are using that dashboard to manage the business. That dashboard's now out of date. I may never have realized. Or more importantly, or maybe less importantly, maybe depending on your perspective, there's another custom field, another custom field, and those are now breaking because the changes are made to the budget field. So this view of user stories linked to metadata, suddenly we're getting a better picture of exactly what needs to be changed. So if I now go back to my user story, just need to do a quick refresh on that. And now you can see I've added those 2 dashboards. I've now got those add extra fields and that extra report. You notice here this one says create, and if I roll over it says this is a proposed node. There isn't any underlying Salesforce data to show. The reason for that is that inside this tree structure, close out of that, here, I can not just, this is obviously synchronizing my org, but I can create proposed items. So this is a brand new object. It isn't yet in Salesforce. That doesn't mean I shouldn't be able to start creating links to and documentation associated with it. Inside this tree structure, I can right mouse click, say add a proposed, in this case, a new proposed field. Vaccination tracking. If I now create that, I could now, there's now a new field, go and add it to my user story. This is a create. So I've created a new item. It isn't yet in Salesforce. I've linked it to that user story. When we create these items inside Salesforce with those API names, we will connect all this documentation you're creating here to the Salesforce item. So just because the item hasn't been created yet doesn't mean you can't add it to a user story. You can't start creating the documentation and linking it. And as I said, that user story is inside Jira. So if I click here, there is Jira, and because of our Chrome extension, there is all the information that you've been populating inside Salesforce is inside Jira, including the dependencies. And you'll notice those two dashboards I just added, they're there. That new vaccination field is there. So the development team, if they're using Jira, have access not just to the ticket, but they have access to the ticket with all the supporting information. Again, hugely powerful in terms of avoiding conflicts and the issues that occur of different teams developing against metadata items for a user story and realizing that they are working at cross purposes. So let's change tack for a moment. Number 3 is about how you increase win rate and profitability. You are, as a consultant, you know about Salesforce, you have certifications, but you have a unique set of skills. You may understand CPQ really well. You may understand Sales Cloud. You may understand a particular industry. So you know Sales Cloud for the oil and gas industry. You may understand, in this case, work.com really well. You've already got a lot of that knowledge. If you package it up, you can package up that innovation. And that knowledge could be a knowledge of how the business processes operate, the business operations. It may be customizations that you've made that you always make. So you've built some extensions, you've built additional fields, specific reports, workflows that are your IP. So how do you package that up and deliver it to a customer? So we're talking about your golden copy. You have your demo org, which you're doing all your innovation on, and then you can take all of that and package it using Elements, all the training content, all the configuration documents you've added, all the training material, and all the process maps if you've built them, and then deliver them into a customer using our packaging capability. And then maybe for the customer, you then make some changes. Some of the bits you don't use, other bits you've added to. You're actually innovating at the customer. You learn more about the way they work. There's no reason why you shouldn't take that capability back based on obviously the relationship with you have your customer and the ownership of that IP, but take that back and then use that to enhance your golden copy. So you're building out that innovation, and you're doing this using our packaging capabilities. So it's not copy and paste, it's a feature which is click a button, it will then pull all that metadata, all that training content, pull all that the documentation, which you then obviously can use at the next client. So you can start to leverage that expertise for client after client whilst you're building up that internal expertise. So a couple of things. That will, I believe, increase win rate. When you're pitching against another consulting firm, not only can you say you have expertise in a particular area, but you can demonstrate it. Secondly, you can show you can hit the ground running. You don't have to reconfigure their org. You can, with a click of a button, you can already get their org configured to a certain level and build from there. Both of those are hugely powerful and valuable to the customer, which means you should increase your win rate. In terms of profitability, if you have a consistent set of tools, accelerators, blueprints, whatever you want to call them, that golden copy, and you are using those consistently at client after client, then your teams get up to speed more quickly. You burn less time getting up the learning curve. There is a consistent way of working. There's a consistent set of content they're using. I read some research recently that said people spend as much as a day a week, 8 hours in a week, looking for information and making sure it's the right version. Here you have a version controlled, managed way of those assets that you're building. Again, there's some links there in terms of how you would do this in practice. Also, you're looking at some business processes there. I'll show you. We'll have a very quick look at a couple of them. But there's a training course that Salesforce put together on business process mapping, The first link on there is if you are a Salesforce partner and have access to the partner learning camp. If you haven't got access to the camp, then go for the second link. So there we go. There is Salesforce. You'll recognize that. It happens to be work.com. First of all, you can see that we're using the Lightning component. We've dropped in a process diagram that's one of our pre-built accelerators straight into Salesforce. So instantly, you're providing training content from your golden version, which has been copied into the customer. But you can also link any documentation, as we saw before. You could link URL links. Maybe it's notes. This is documenting a particular object. You could link to that object maybe a different process diagram about how you manage locations. So you can create in your golden copy process maps, but also links from any content, processes, documentation, URL links, back to metadata items. And then when you do that packaging, all of those links then appear inside the customer's org. So we're pre-populating the training material, the configuration material, and the process maps. And our packaging is clever enough to know versioning and release management. So we're not going to overwrite anything that's been changed at the customer. So a very quick look at how this might work. We built out the work.com accelerators. Salesforce had this top-level picture, so we took the top-level picture and then drilled down into detail and said, okay, what are the process diagrams that go below that? So there is how we do wellness with links to supporting material. I could even drill down to the next level of detail there, and there's some lower-level diagrams there. These are the diagrams which we created very quickly, which are then form part of our work.com accelerator. Work.com launched on the 1st of June. We built out the entire accelerator on the day it launched, just to prove it could be done. So this is the process diagram, but also we have linked to, in this case, the employee. Let's find the employee object. We've created links. So a link to a URL, how to schedule a medical appointment, a link to a wellness video, link to a process step, and another process step. And those with good eyesight will see that we can make these things visible in Lightning. So if I say make visible in Lightning, if I go back to, so I can maintain all this help for the customer sitting inside Salesforce, and this is what gets packaged up. I'll package up the process maps, I'll package up all these links. So some of these links aren't necessarily help. They could be configuration documentation. Do not change this workflow. So this happens to be at an object level. There's no reason why the documentation couldn't be linked for an Apex class. Or it could be for a managed package. It doesn't matter. Any metadata item that exists in the org, you can document in your gold version and then push across to the customer. So some thoughts here. Number one, we believe Elements is your consultant's secret sauce. The number of consulting firms I've talked to, including the largest of the global systems integrators, who view this as, the words they use are, it's a differentiator, it's a game changer. But it doesn't matter how big you are. You don't have to be a GSI. You can be a partner just on the journey, starting to build your practice. Here is a way of building that practice with the best tools to enable you to win work against the more established players. So it works whether you're brand new or you're one of the global SIs. So 3 things we've talked about. One is, how do you reduce project risk? You can do that very easily. The process maps are there, the training's there. Deliver better engagements with that business and org analysis. I've given you the full picture, but I've also given you the quick win about what you can do to get some results really quickly to the customer. And thirdly, maybe slightly more sophisticated, but the idea of building up some accelerators, building up some IP, maybe from the first customer, or maybe because you have a particular, you already have those capabilities documented somewhere in a PowerPoint deck. You can start to build some really powerful accelerators. We have a consulting license, which enables you to work with multiple clients. You may have a situation where the client already has Elements licenses and you're going to use those licenses. I think the most important thing is the next steps, which is come and talk to us about how we can support your consulting practice. Every consulting firm we talk to has a different spin, a different approach, a different set of skills. Elements can dovetail into those very effectively. So come and talk to us at partners@elements.cloud. So thank you for joining me on this webinar. As I said, the recording will be sent to you, as will the deck. And again, hit us up, ask us some questions, partners@elements.cloud, or if you want to contact me directly, Ian@elements.cloud.